This is Things Police See, first-hand accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. In this episode, I interview retired La Palma Captain Jim Engen. La Palma is a city just outside of LA. It was a really fun interview, and Jim's got some great and crazy experiences. We talk about responding to the LA riots, chasing down bank robbers, dodging bullets, and some really humorous things, tagging along with the local fire department to some pretty hilarious medical calls. At the end of the episode, Jim has some great advice for new recruits and people looking to become police officers. You don't want to miss it. It's just really good. Jim's just really smart, really wise guy. I can see how he made the rank of captain. If you would like to reach the podcast or reach me, you can do that at a Gmail account I set up. It's thingspolicesee@gmail.com. So again, that's thingspolicesee@gmail.com. Go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll get right back to you. Without further ado, here's my interview with retired Captain Jim Engen. I am here with retired Captain Jim Engen from La Palma Police Department. La Palma is what I know about La Palma is it's a smallish city outside Los Angeles.
Yes.
Which does not save you from anything in Southern California, because you're still going to get all the same bad guys. This is what I've learned the last year I've lived here.
That would be correct. Just because the agency is a small agency,
right?
We're not immune from the elements of crime. That's for sure.
So you were there for how long, Jim? Your whole career?
My entire career, I was there for 27 years. I started my first piece of employment there as a reserve officer for a year, and then the remaining 26, I was an officer. Then I rose through the ranks up to captain before I retired.
Okay, that's great. So the idea of the podcast is I'm going to ask you a few questions and kind of let people see what police work is like kind of through your stories, through your eyes, how it affects you and what it was like having your experiences. So can you tell me what it was like the first time you went on a really hot call, the first call that you went on and you were like, oh my God.
I was thinking back to that, and I couldn't think of really one. As we get into this, there's going to be some other areas where I may kind of dive into the same call.
Sure.
But I want to say the first ones were the LA riots in 1992. After the Rodney King verdict, agencies throughout California and through other states, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, they had police
they
come
just
down here to L.A. And
you got sucked into it.
And we all got sucked into it. So you talk about not knowing what you're going to run into on the next corner.
I can't. We watched that on the East Coast on TV, and it was madness. We thought people on the East Coast thought California was going to burn. That was just over. It was so crazy, the images we saw.
Yes. And it all started actually when I was in the academy, when Rodney King had the encounter with police at that time. But anyway, we went to a briefing over at what is now the Coliseum at USC.
Okay.
Where we had our briefing. And we were told at that time that we are not to contact anybody. Our job was to make sure that everybody was abiding by curfew. Now, you may get shot at, so make sure you have your helmets on. So that made me feel real good.
Yeah.
So anyway, I could tell you that a few times I was out of the car, we did hear shots, and I heard a few whizzes.
Yeah.
We took cover.
Do you have a helmet I could wear over my whole body?
That's for sure. But we were told if we have to return fire, we are to do so. And if we did have to return fire, and if we hit somebody, we were to not approach. We were to go report back to the command center and give them the time, approximate location, and approximately how many people were down. And they would look into it later, as that was the whole pretty much scenario. Those were our marching orders, because it was all about protecting the cops.
That's unreal. So that's almost like wartime engagement. It's like, just get out of there.
Yes.
And if you engage, get out. And they probably didn't have the resources to even attend to to injured people.
Absolutely. So that was pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
But there was a call where we had a report of a possible gang-related shooting in the city of Cypress, which is just south of our border. They're a little bit bigger of a city, department about twice the size. And we didn't have much of a vehicle description. And I pull into this parking lot, I make a U-turn, and I see a car pull up to a stoplight.
Make sure you keep the mic close. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry about that.
They're sensitive.
Is that okay?
That's good.
So keep it close like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I saw a car pulling up to this stoplight, and I look at them, and they kind of look at me, and then they look away, and I thought, wow, this is kind of weird. So I got behind them, and I started following them, and I said, I have possible PG, or what we call PGRs, in a vehicle, approximately 5. And I'm northbound on Carmenita waiting for backup. Well, my backup was probably 3 miles away. So I'm just following this car, and I don't even know what I have. So as I continue to follow the car, I have my amber lights on in the back. I don't want them to think that, I'm actually following them.
Right.
About 10 miles into it, I finally see the red lights coming up from behind me. So as soon as I see them, they shut them off, and we get 2 additional officers. We go ahead and light them up, turn on our lights, and then we see guns flying out of the window. So now we are in a territory or an area where we are not familiar with.
So they're ditching their guns.
They're ditching their guns.
Okay.
They drive into this neighborhood. It was in Norwalk, and the neighborhood was called Carmelis, the Carmelis gang. And it was just one officer and myself. The car stops. There was a 3-year-old inside the car.
Oof.
And everybody inside the car, with the exception of this one female, takes off. Well, the next thing we know, we have a hostile crowd. This neighborhood was not police friendly.
Oof.
So I had my partner covering my back with a 12-gauge shotgun, and I'm just focused on the car. And we were there for 20 minutes not knowing what's going to happen to us because we did not know the street that we were on. And it was
that's unreal, man. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think people have a good idea of what it's like to have people just not like you because of your job. Like you're doing the right thing. You're trying to stop a crime. You're trying to enforce the law, and immediately people just don't like it. They just show you hate.
Yes.
I mean, and then you're stuck there.
And we're stuck there. Now it all ended up good. We got our bad guy, and he went to jail, and he is serving time for murder.
Wow.
So that's that. I would say if those 2 things, those were very early on. I was young. I was green. You hear about the term tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Lots of tunnel vision. Lots of just a narrow sight, and just thinking, hey, I just want to go home to my family.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And that's probably when you realize this is for real.
This is, yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
Before that, all you have is, stories and the movies and TV,
Correct.
Wow.
That's right.
Do you have a call that you can think of that you would consider your strangest or most bizarre thing you ran into?
Well, I could think of a number of them that
I bet
might not be, for purposes of this interview, I might not want to mention. However,
don't hold back on my account. Go ahead and say pick whichever you like.
Okay. Well, this is kind of a funny one,
Okay.
and this is for all audiences.
Okay.
Brand new officer. I had gone to crime scene investigator school. See, with small departments, the police officers they write cold case reports, all crime reports. They conduct their own crime scene investigation. They collect their own evidence and all that.
So in a lot of ways, you're getting a more well-rounded officer.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the positive things about a small police department is you get to learn all aspects of the job. You're not confined to just one area,
Sure.
or one aspect of the work. So anyway, I go to CSI school and I learn how to take fingerprints. Now, fingerprints, if you want to know what fingerprint powder is, really nothing but soot. That's all it is.
It's like carbon?
It's like carbon.
Okay.
Okay. So right out of briefing, I get a call to go to this residential burglary, and it was a crazy burglary. It was a ransack, what we call a ransack, where all the rooms have been gone through, all the drawers were open, they had quite a bit of items stolen. Well, I'm a young rookie cop, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to find my fingerprints.
Right.
So I get over there, and I'm go through all the rooms, dusting the rooms for prints, and I dug on and I got those prints that I wanted to get. So then I complete that job, and as I was going back to the station to regroup, I got a call for another residential burglary. So a couple blocks away, probably the same people. Well, I get there and knock on the door. The resident answered. She was a nice woman, and she looked at me and she says, "Hi," and I said, "I'm here to take a report. I guess your house was burglarized." And she said, "Yes, it was." She goes, "Would you like to come in?" I said, "Sure." So we go in the kitchen, we sit down, and she goes, "Can I get you a glass of water?" I said, "No, I'm fine." For some reason or another, I don't take any prints there. I didn't think there was going to be any evidence, so I chose not to take prints, and plus I wanted to get out of there anyway. So I finished that up, and as I'm leaving, I give her my business card, and she goes, "I'm sure you don't need a glass of water?" I said, "No, I'm fine." So I get in the car, I go drive back to the station, and I go in the locker room to wash my hands, and I have black soot all over my face, coming out of my nostrils, in my teeth. And all I could think of was this poor woman. Is this who we are hiring as police officers? This is my police department?
This idiot doesn't know he has it
Yeah,
all over.
I'm sure she was horrified.
Oh, my God.
So we got a kind of a kick out of it. So that's kind of a funny story I like to tell. But there was one where a woman called up, and because we would respond, not only would we respond to crimes, we respond to medical aids too.
Okay.
Because we're first responders. We are trained in basic life support.
Same, my town I came from. We do the same thing.
Yes. So medical aid, female, frantic, I think something's wrong with my boyfriend. So we respond to the scene code 3, and we get there, and the boyfriend's in bed, and he's just screaming bloody murder. I mean, he is in pain, and he's in pain in the groin area. So the EMTs get there. They load him on the gurney, and as they're taking him out, we're trying to figure, okay, ma'am, what happened? I mean, was this some kind of crime? And could be domestic violence. Maybe they got in a fight and she kicked him in the groin.
Lorena Bobbitt.
However, no. In fact, they were actually engaged in a mutual intercourse.
Right.
And apparently, during the session, he positioned himself the wrong way and broke a blood vessel in his scrotum.
Oh.
So the EMTs and the paramedics were just amazed. They're like, oh my God, wow, somebody get a camera. So I got a camera. So I go, hey, what's going on? And they're going, guys, you have got to take a look at this. And no kidding, this poor guy, his scrotum was blown up to literally half the size of a basketball.
Oh, my God.
But I can only think, the girl's horrified. But see, police have and even firemen, we all get along. We collect evidence, they destroy evidence. But, because they're in the business of saving lives, so are we, but we're also in the business of protecting a crime scene. But at the end of the day, we're all on the same team.
Sure, absolutely.
But, there's just something that sometimes police have to do to exhaust their stress, and that is to find humor in just about everything at the expense of this poor guy.
Absolutely. That's great.
So,
wow.
So yeah. So I've had quite a time, and that's one of many.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, switch gears a little bit. Could you tell me about the most intense and or terrifying moment being a police officer?
Yes. And again, these are a lot of times in police work, you'll hear of the term routine call. Right. And let me tell you, there's no such thing as a routine call.
Absolutely.
I am driving back to the station. Actually, the sergeant had called me in. Again, I was a new officer, and unfortunately, the week prior, I failed to look at the schedule. But I was assigned to work on a weekend day, on an off day, and I didn't realize I was supposed to work, so I actually missed a shift. Well, that can get you fired, absent without leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm on probation, so I thought, oh boy, this is it. I got called into the station by the sergeant, and as I get to the back lot, before I could park the car, dispatch comes out and says 37 units, because La Palma were known as Station 37. 37 units. 211 bank in progress at this bank called Capital Bank, and it was my beat. So right away I'm thinking, okay,
211 is robbery.
A 211 is a robbery. It's and she said 211 armed, so which meant was an armed robbery. This is I'll never forget the date, September 21st, 1992. So it's my beat, it's my call. I'm the handling officer. I had a senior officer who was my partner. And then we had the supervisor. So I knew everybody was going to start responding to it. I get there. I get to the location first. And as I'm getting there, here's what you're thinking as a police. Okay, we need a suspect description. We need a vehicle description. And very common in 211s that there's two vehicles always involved. There is what they call a cold-plated stolen, and then their getaway vehicle to try to throw us off. Well, so I get on scene, and I'm already planning because I knew the layout of where this bank was. It was a mini mall, and there was a back alley. There was a west alley and a north alley. So we were going to cover both those alleys. I was going to cover the north alley. My partner was going to cover the west alley to block any type of escape because La Palma's small. We have an average 2-minute response time. So we get there, and my attention is diverted to the guy who actually called 911, who called in this armed robbery. So I focused my attention on him for 3 seconds. And he's telling me that, pointing over at the bank. Well, as he's doing that, as I'm looking at the bank, the sergeant, who was the third officer to arrive on scene, sees a black tinted window Cadillac Seville pulling out of the north alleyway, which was where I was going. Well, he gets behind that car. We don't know if that's them or not. He gets behind it and starts calling out his location. Knowing that now I got my supervisor who has a possible suspect, I immediately drive out of the parking lot and get right behind him. Well, as we are behind him, he calls out the license plate over the radio. Our lights aren't on. We're just figuring out what's the best place to stop them. Well, as soon as he calls out the license plate, the car immediately accelerates away. So now lights are on in pursuit. We get about a half mile up the road. The car comes to a complete stop, skids to a stop. Doors go fly open. So what are we thinking? Well, here's why you always say routine. It's always an assumption. Sometimes you make those mistakes as a cop. You make those assumptions that they're going to get out on foot and run.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. They got out of the car and opened fire on us. All I could see was the flash and the smoke and the pop, pop, pop on the front hood of my car and the windshield of my car.
Wow.
Completely took out the supervisor's car. They just completely disabled the car. So now I'm by myself and I'm chasing them now. And I'm calling out and adrenaline's high. Tunnel vision's set in.
Hard to control your voice in the radio.
Hard to control the voice in the radio. And all I can think about was, don't let these guys get away. They're not going to get away. I'm not, and my training kicked in, and this is academy training. Training kicked in. Moving car, 9:30 in the morning, lots of traffic. don't shoot the car and disable it because someone else might get injured. So keep them in my sights and chase them and don't lose them.
Right.
So I'm chasing him for a couple of miles, getting close, shooting, hitting the car, backing off just a little bit.
That you're shooting?
No. I'm not shooting.
Okay.
You think about it, when you Monday morning quarterback yourself, you think, oh, yeah, but this was definitely not a Bonnie and Clyde.
That would be hard.
That would be hard. We don't train to shoot while we're driving a car.
Right.
That's not something we learn in the academy. But 2 miles into the chase, they make a U-turn and drive directly at me. Wow. So now I'm thinking, okay, you're not going to be eliminated from this chase. So I figure, and this is something that I thought about, if they're going to shoot me and if I'm going to be hit, I'm going to be hit where it least counts, and that's going to be in the butt. I put my butt up against the driver's side door, and I had my gun out ready to go, thinking if they shoot me, they're going to shoot me in the butt. For some reason, I just had that in my mind.
So how come they turned around, they're coming at you now?
Yeah.
Are you parked now?
No, I'm basically stopped right in the middle of an intersection.
Okay.
Trying to figure out, because they're going to be going the opposite way. I knew that they were going for the freeway.
Gotcha.
So didn't hit me. I was pretty happy about that. So now the chase is back on again. Now the cavalry starts to arrive. But they managed to make it on the freeway, and they continued to shoot at us. And I was actually the first car, and I'm calling this pursuit. And I could tell as it was progressing, my tunnel vision began to widen, and I started kind of regrouping, knowing, okay, this is where we're at. Hey, just keep it up. Don't lose them.
Yeah.
I thought about ramming them, but I thought I had the sense to think, well, if I ram them, then the airbag is going to go off in my car. I'm going to be out of the chase.
Yeah.
So just stay on them. So when it wasn't working shooting at us, we weren't backing off. Then they started shooting as they passed other vehicles. They started shooting at those vehicles. We chased them into North Long Beach. The pursuit lasted about 15 minutes. Thankfully, no one was hit. What ended up happening was...
That's like a miracle.
Yeah. What ended up happening was the front passenger shot off his own thumb. And so they knew how to give up. So they gave up. We had an audience. They were in their hometown. We had the sheriff's department assisting us. I could tell you that I was not very happy with these individuals.
Yeah, of course.
I usually don't, I usually watch my tongue, especially when there's an audience. But I think that at that point, I was just upset. And what was going through my mind at that time was, they're shooting at me. I might get hit, but I can't lose them. No matter what, you don't lose them.
Right.
And the whole time, I was I was about 25 years old. And I didn't have a girl. Wasn't married. Didn't have a girlfriend. I just had my mom. Just my mom. And I just were thinking, if I end up losing my life, what's going to happen to my mom?
Oh, yeah.
And I kept thinking about my mom the whole time.
I bet.
But anyway, we arrested him, and then they ended up going to trial, and they got 25 to life. One of them was just released from prison, and is now working at Palos Verdes Estates at a gym. And
well, not a gym you attend.
Not a gym I attend.
Wow. Now tell me this bought you some good favor with your supervisor.
Well, let me tell you now. At the end of this whole thing, I was thinking to myself, and this is why you have your senior officer there, who happened to be my field training officer before that. And I went to him and I said, Dorrington, I said, I've got a huge report I have to take. I got to go back and I got to go interview the bank tellers, and I got to do this because we're a small department. We do everything.
Sure.
And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Son, I'm sure somebody else is going to be taking this report." He said, "You need to just sit down and just be thankful you're alive.
Decompress.
And just decompress." I was never treated with more understanding and compassion. And it was at that time where I knew that, wow, this is a very close brotherhood. And something like that at our department didn't happen every day.
Right.
In fact, that was probably the most serious incident that my city ever experienced. We're a very quiet community, but again, this goes to show you that you're not immune from the elements.
Of course. Wow, man, that is, like you said, that guy gave you a break, and which was the right thing to do because of the stress you were just through. But they're just, they're all fine. They're finding out now that these little, mini traumas that cops go through, it's PTSD. That stuff builds up in cops over the years.
Correct.
Now, how do you feel dealing with these bombardments of, negativity and dangerous calls and people in general, just like those people who surrounded you, just giving you shit all the time when you're trying to do your job? Do you feel like you successfully were able to fight off that them versus us mentality? Or
here's something that you need to remember. We all law enforcement is a very small, tight-knit community. We all became police officers for a reason, and that's why. Why? Because we want to help. We want to make a difference. We want to keep the quality of life high here, and we play a major part in that. But you want to make sure that you never take things personally. And I myself didn't take things personally. And this was instilled in my brain through my training officer.
It's good advice.
You're going to be yelled at. You're going to be called names. But see, it's out of lack of respect for the law. But the thing is that we apply the law the same to everybody. And you cannot take it personally. So I immune myself from that. Because I know, hey, if they really knew who I was as a person,
right,
they probably wouldn't be saying those things. Maybe they had some bad experiences in their life. Maybe they're taught that police are, you can't trust them because let's face it. If you ask a member of the community, depending on where it's at, especially here in the size of LA, that LA the size of it is and the population what it is. If you ask them about what were your experiences with police, and they're going to tell you, well, not good.
Never positive.
So and so, my brother was arrested, my dad was arrested, my mom was. They caused us to have to go to court and pay fines and this and that. Well, then, what about firemen? Well, firemen different. Firemen, they look at firemen as
they helped us.
They help us. Our
right.
house was burning and they came and put the fire out. Or my dad had a heart attack and they came and brought him back.
That's a great example. When I was in police academy, the instructor said, "Tell us a positive experience you've had with the police." So everybody starts raising their hands, and one kid goes, "Oh, I got pulled over, but he gave me a warning." He goes, "Why do you think that's positive?" He goes, "Let me ask him. When you put the lights on and was pulling you over, were you afraid or were you nervous?" "Well, yeah." Your brain did not register that as a positive experience. You were happy you didn't get a ticket, but very few encounters police have people see as positive. They're usually negative.
27 years being a police officer, and if a police officer got behind me, I'd get nervous.
You're like, oh shit. I
would get nervous.
Yeah.
Good example, and this is something that maybe police officers with kids have. I had just gotten off work. I was off at 6 a.m, and we were on our way out to the river at 8. And I'm in my truck, and I've got my 13-year-old son with me at the time. I'm driving on I-15 going towards Vegas, and I'm going about 85 miles an hour. One of the reasons I want to get there quicker, and everybody knows that cars usually drive 85 miles an hour between Victorville and Vegas.
Nothing out there.
So next thing I know, I've got a chippy behind me, and I'm getting pulled over. And I looked at my son, Garrett, and I said, all right, because I was thinking to myself, okay, now what am I going to do? What kind of an example am I going to be?
Right.
So I said, Garrett, your dad was driving over the speed limit, and if your dad gets a ticket, your dad deserves it.
Wow, good for you.
So that's going to happen. Well, luckily, he was making a double car stop, and the car that was in front of me was doing the same. He was going to stop that car. So as I pulled over, that car pulls over, and then I see it itching forward, and then takes off, and the CHP officer pulled up right next to me and says, "It's your lucky day, buddy." And he went after the other one. So I think God was looking over my shoulder at that one.
God saw your moment of honesty.
But at least my son knew that his dad was going to accept a ticket. If I get a ticket, I get a ticket. So
that's great.
That's one of those ethical issues.
Absolutely. One last question for you, Jim, before we wrap this up. Any advice you'd give to new recruits, candidates getting into the police field now?
Yes. Number one, never forget your tactics. Some of the best tactics we see out in the field are from the officers who are fresh out of the academy. They have great tactics. You go to the next person who's been out of the academy for 20 years, and they forget how to properly control somebody and properly handcuff somebody.
Complacency.
So complacency. Never forget your tactics. The other thing is never take things personally. You're going to get yelled at. You're going to get spit on. You're going to be accused of things. But at the end of the day, you're the one in control. So do it with the reason and do it behind that badge of honor. Do things right. Only use the force necessary. And once that arrest is made, it's King's X. It's done. It's done. So never, ever take things personally. Just remember, they're yelling at the uniform, not at you.
Jim, that's some great advice, man.
I got a lot more if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Don't just keep cops and law enforcement as your friends. You want to have friends outside of law enforcement because that keeps you into perspective. Never hold things in. When your wife or significant other wants to talk to you, talk to them. Don't just feel like you have to talk to a police officer. Talk to your significant others. Always, some of the things that police or new cops, they can get caught up in cliques. Don't get yourself involved in a clique. And stay with the right crowd. There are some police officers, who are disgruntled, who have been around for a while. Don't get yourself involved in those cliques. Stay positive and remember why you chose this profession. So remember your oath and never compromise it. And just remember that no call is a routine call. There's no such thing as a routine call.
Great stuff, Jim. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome.
Hey, guys. Thanks for checking out the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you did and you want to show some support for the show, please go to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.